The last half of 2017 was pretty exhausting. The most draining part, both emotionally, physically, and financially, has been the laborious task of moving my father into an aged care facility due to his rapidly advancing dementia. He lives in Tasmania, where I grew up, and I'm currently working and living in Brisbane, which is about 2,500 kilometres, or 1,500 miles for you Imperials, to the north of Tasmania. I've been making the 3.5-hour flight down to Tasmania about twice a month to sort out my dad's situation. I've been busying myself by fixing up his empty, dilapidated home in order to get it ready to be sold. I moved out all of his furniture and belongings, save for a pile of blankets and pillows that I turn into a makeshift bed on the floor while I'm in visiting. The house is situated in a semi-rural area surrounded by overgrown trees and bushes. It's an old house, it's damp, everything creaks, and there is currently no electricity, which makes the nighttime very creepy. The house itself is not very secure, no alarm system. The doors have locks, but a forceful nudge will pop the door open. I flew in on Christmas Eve in the late evening, picked up my hire car to make the hour-long drive down to the house. I stopped in at a mate's place who lives about 10 minutes from my dad's to have a few beers and shoot the shit about the year that just had passed. After a couple of hours, I realised that I had probably surpassed the legal blood alcohol limit to drive. My mate's legendary wife dropped me off at dad's and offered to come back in the morning to pick me up and go back to their place to get my car. I entered my dad's house around midnight. Inside the house was pitch black, and in my slightly drunk state, I flipped the light switch and nothing happened. Oh yeah, that's right, no power. Using my phone as a light to navigate my way through the house over the creaky floorboards, I noticed that some of the tools I had left laying around inside the house had been stolen. I sighed and accepted the fact that it was my own stupid fault for leaving them out in an unsecure house. Some kids probably noticed that no one is living there and took advantage of the situation. It was unsettling knowing that someone had been in here, but I didn't bother calling the police over a hammer, wrench and screwdriver that came to a grand total of about $16.50. Good news was the big toolbox, which I keep locked up in the laundry cupboard that houses my more expensive power tools, was still there and intact. I studied the padlock and the space around it, and it looked pretty scratched up and dented, like someone had crudely attempted to prise it open. "Nice try, dickheads," I said aloud to myself. The toolbox is very big and heavy. Too big for one person to carry it, unless you're Andre the Giant. Exhausted, I went into one of the furnitureless bedrooms, made my makeshift bed out of my blankets and pillows. I couldn't get comfortable, and it was taking me a while to drift off to sleep. As I was laying there, the only sounds I could hear over the ringing of my tinnitus was the gentle rustle of wind through the trees. I could also hear what sounded like the unmistakable crunch of boots on the gravel driveway that went up the side of the house. I tried to listen harder. Then there was this loud gong sound of something solid coming into contact with the metal railing that leads up to the back door. This makes me sit up wide-eyed while my heart rate starts to increase. Maybe it was a wallaby or a possum. I sit there as still as possible, just listening. I can hear the sound of the trees in the wind and nothing else for a few moments, and I start to calm down. This is interrupted by the pop and squeak of the back door being pushed open. I freeze, not knowing what to do. I could hear footsteps creaking through the back of the house, and I hear the laundry cupboard being opened. I was up by the other end of the hallway, but I could hear whispering. The only words I could make out were, "There, shh, quick." I pull myself together, pull out my phone, and call the coppers. I chat to the dispatcher while burying my head under the pillow to muffle my voice. I explain the situation to the dispatcher, and she says the cops are coming and they're on their way. While this is happening, I can hear a chink sound of what I'm assuming was the lock of the toolbox trying to be broken. The dispatcher suggests that I lock the door of the room I'm in. I agree, and as I slowly pad over across the room to the door, one of the floorboards creaks so freaking loud. I freeze and hear dead silence from the laundry. They must have heard. After about 30 seconds of standing still, I try to take another step and get yet another high-pitched creak. But this seems to work in my favour because I hear my new house guests scatter away out the back door. I lock the bedroom door and tell the dispatcher that I think they've gone. She tells me to stay put until the police arrive, and I tell her I'm more than happy to comply. After about 5 minutes, the cops arrive and the dispatcher bids me farewell. The police did a search of the area and found nothing, as expected. They had tried to break open the toolbox. One of the coppers says, "Why didn't they just use bolt cutters? Fucking amateurs." I explained to the coppers about how when I had come home that some of the tools I'd left laying around were stolen and that the toolbox looked like it had already attempted to be broken into. Upon hearing that, the other cop stated his theory of how events took place. They probably broke in early the night before you got here. They grabbed what they could, tried to open the toolbox, but couldn't, and then left to go get something to open it with. While they were gone, you came home, and then they arrived back here to open the toolbox. I doubt they were dangerous, probably just kids. Good timing, I think to myself. I make a report, and that's that. I stayed up until sunrise and then decided to get a couple of hours sleep until my mate's wife came to pick me up and collect my car. I asked if I can keep my tools at their place for safekeeping, to which they agreed. I then drove to my dad's old folks' home and had Christmas lunch with him and his new elderly buddies. The following day, I went to the hardware store to purchase some newer, sturdier door locks.